Jam beats Pelosi. Off the wall to Harris. Harris has got Pelosi. Harris to Pelosi. Shot. He scores! Chris Pelosi!
And Patra trying to drive in on that right wing side. Patra in. Scores! Matt Patra in overtime.
Millis took it right off his stick. Sends one through. They score! First career goal for the Bruins draft pick, Donald Millis. Back to the blue line. Cowan has it, looking for the return feed. Cowan lets it go back to the point. Shot!
Those were without all of their World Junior guys for that against Simon Fraser. BC played him Sunday. Good pass ahead. There's Yelvik. He scores! Didn't need an exhibition.
Will come up with it. Ross Schwab flips it out to center. Now McKinney gets chased with Harrison. Harrison to the backhand. Score! A deft touch.
Watch out. Nelson steals. Walks in. Scores! 6-2. Jackson Nelson has the hat-trick.
In a Crosby line.
There we go. Welcome into this week's episode of the Dom.Hockey podcast. Dom, I don't know what was going on with the audio there. My ear. Can you hear that?
No. Everything's working fine here.
All righty. Well, I don't know what was going on there. It was looping through in my head, but I know you messaged me yesterday. You said you had an itinerary for the show today, and then we woke up to some good news this morning. But before we dive into all the B stuff, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm kind of disappointed now that Jeremy Swayman is signed. Like, whatever will we talk about moving forward after tonight? Oh, wait, actual real hockey.
Right, real hockey on the ice, right? You know, technically the regular season has started because we had the games between Buffalo and New Jersey, but you know, Bruins get going on Tuesday, so we'll be live again tomorrow for What's Bruin. As I mentioned, today is the prospects. Today is all about prospects. I will ask you this, obviously, because the Swayman news kind of has dominated everything. Do you want to touch on it just briefly?
Oh, we'll touch on it, however long it takes. I think you can start out with putting up the contract details I sent you.
Absolutely. I'll pull these up. We got some folks already jumping in the comments. Unfortunately, this graphic wipes the two of us out on here, but I will let you kick us off, Dom.
Yeah, so for months we've heard that this deal was going to come in at around 8 times 8. $64 million, came in at 8.25, $66 million. So it was right there. You know, one of the contentious issues was going to be lockout protection. Swayman got $2 million for that. And trade protection. And he got some. So, like, I'm sitting here wondering, why did we have to go through this for the past 3 months? And I don't have an answer.
Two people who are very stubborn in their ways who didn't have a deadline, a hard deadline. I think
the hard deadline's December 1st.
Yeah, but I think both people viewed tomorrow at 5:00 as a true deadline, simply because that's when the salary keeps going down for the player and the cap hit would keep going up for the team. So I really think both sides looked at it as, we want to have this done before that becomes part of the problem.
I don't know. To me, the hard deadline is December 1st. Either sign or don't play. That's the hard deadline.
hardest deadline. That's the don't you can't go beyond here. But I mean, I got to say, I'm a fan of how it's structured. Some people are probably wondering why there's no trade protection in the first and second year, but that's because he's not eligible for it. So that was clear. Then you got the full no movement clause for the next 4, which also protects him from expansion in that time frame as well, should it happen between now and 2030. And then the 10-team and the 10-team no trade. So he gets to completely alter his lists in those last 2 years.
Yeah, if you ask me to pick a winner on this, I'd have to side with the Bruins. I think as time goes by, this contract's going to look like a great deal at $8.25 million. They didn't give a whole lot in lockout protection, and they left themselves open to being able to move him in the last couple of years of the deal.
If they really need to, yeah. And based on the cap dollars, I mean, obviously the cap hit's going to be the cap hit, but a salary of 5 and 4.5, that's a movable contract, especially 8 years from now with where the cap's going to be, financially where the league is going to be. Like, that's going to be an easily movable dollar figure if they came down to it. So
yeah, so it's good that it's done. Obviously, it's had a ripple down effect to Brandon Bussey.
Yep.
Who was placed on waivers today.
And newly Ray Patura.
Yeah. So who was also placed on waivers today. That if they clear, it doesn't mean that both of them will get sent down to Providence right away. It just means that they have 30 days or 10 days to do that, so that they wouldn't require waivers to go down at a later. Yeah. So if Swayman's not ready and they need to dress Bussey as a backup, they can still do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that for at least the first game, maybe the second game as well. But there's cap room, the cap hit.
Well, no, there isn't. There isn't, because with the moves that the Bruins announced today, they're actually over the cap. Yeah, if you put up the roster that I sent you, based on who was placed on waivers.
Real quick before I want to show Kevin's comment. He says, "Mark my words, Jeremy Swayman will be more hated than Tuukka Rask if he doesn't win the cup in the next 3 to 5 years." Based on how all this went down, we'll come back to that, Kevin. But it's a good comment to have brought up. So
based on who they placed on waivers and who they sent down to Providence today, this is what the roster looks like for tomorrow. Still, they can make moves before 5 p.m. That's a 24-man roster. So that means that either Max Jones or Matthew Patra, barring another move, is starting tomorrow on injured reserve to open up a roster spot, which means they'll be out for at least a week. Then they're over the cap by $363,000. Might also add Alec Regula is also on this list, but he opens up as a season opening injured reserve because we believe his injury is based on his injury from last season, so there is no cap hit for him. So looking at this roster with Swayman now, to get under the cap, that means they'll end up doing a paper transaction of sending Johnny Beecher or Mason Lohrei or Matthew Patra, if healthy, to Providence just to get under the cap. Mm-hmm. And we might see somebody else go on waivers tomorrow. Barring that, I don't know how else they do it. Which also means that right now they cannot sign Tyler Johnson.
Right. I think that's telling right there. Now we'll have to figure out, if Tyler Johnson gets on a flight and goes somewhere else, then there's probably no plan to sign him. But to your point, I think some of this is kind of protecting themselves because they have some options. Like you said, Poitras can go down, Beecher can go down, Lohrei can go down, and none of them require waivers. And as a paper transaction to get cap compliant, you can easily send Matthew Poitras down and
Not if he's injured. You cannot send down an injured player.
Right. But I'm saying if he's healthy, you can become cap compliant and then you can address, okay, these people got claimed off of waivers. Who else can who do we think based on that can get through? Kemke or Tufte or Mitchell or, I'm not sure why they didn't just cut down to 223 unless Max Jones is, in my opinion, will probably start on IR. That's what I think is going to end up happening.
Yeah, but they'll also be down to 23 if they have to send somebody down in a paper transaction. We'll know tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have our show at 6:30 and we'll have a final roster and we can dissect it there. This is what I came up with today based on the transactions the Bruins made. Like Ian Mitchell not going on waivers was a surprise to me.
Yeah, same. I'm surprised they decided to not put one of Tufte or Kopke on waivers, but
they look good. They look good in the preseason, so it's a difficult move.
Absolutely.
And if Jones is unable to go, you need one of them. And if Beecher is the one who's sent down, then you need both of them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that could be what they're looking at. So, and then I know you also gave me a projection for what today we're talking about, some of the prospects here. Do you want me to pull up the one for Providence?
Yeah, we might as well get to it and get it out of the way. Like this Providence team looks sneaky good. But how many times have we said that only to see them fail?
Yeah.
Like Lysell, Lettieri, and Merkulov have played together before, and they've done really, really well. I liked Harrison with Farinacci and Duran in Bruins camp when they were together. Looked great. Trevor Kuntar, I don't care what line you put him on, he's going to look great. Jackson Nelson had a good camp. Mark McLaughlin, not so much. And, of course, we know Patrick Brown and what he can do. So he's going to be a big leader down there in Providence. So, on defense, a lot of questions. There's a lot of bodies there.
Yeah.
But Sweezy had a good camp. Regula obviously is injured. Ian Mitchell shouldn't be there because right now he's with the big club. The big question is going to be, will both goalies clear and be down in Providence? And then you've got a logjam.
Yeah, you got a logjam there. You've got a bit of a logjam on defense as well. I mean, Osterley looked not great in camp, but also not terrible either. Like he looked like he'll have a decent career or decent year in the American Hockey League this year. And then I really liked what I saw from Sweezy. So if he clears waivers, as long as didn't he require waivers?
Yeah.
So if he clears waivers and you need another defenseman, I would be willing to bet as long as it's within that 30-day window, he's your first call up on D.
Could be.
Unless maybe it's Ian Mitchell, depending on where his waiver, that I think will play into it for sure. But yeah. I really liked what I saw from Sweezy during camp.
Yeah, I think he had a better camp than Mitchell, to be honest with you.
I thought so too. That's why I thought Sweezy would have ended up being an eighth defenseman if they ended up with 8 defensemen and going that route. But I mean, even then, I'm like, I don't think they'll use that roster spot. I think cap dollars would be more important. But Obviously, the deal with Swayman completely changed course. But what I always want to remind people of is Don Sweeney leaves his options open. He keeps options on the table. Matrix has a good question. What happens if both Patera and Bussy get claimed?
Well, you got DPH will be the starter in Providence, and Ryan Bischel will back him up.
Yeah, I'm not sure that both or even one of them get claimed, because the way I'm looking at Boston would have been quite low on the list for waiver claims for Patera. No one above them put a claim in for him. Otherwise, Boston wouldn't have ended up with him. And if you look at the teams behind him, most of them don't need Patera or Bussy on their NHL roster. So could you make the case for one or two teams? Yeah, probably. But they're probably not leaning towards grabbing a goalie off of waivers. Most of them.
Well, for Patera, any other team that put in a claim would have first dibs to him.
Right.
So obviously no other team has put in a claim. Because if there were two teams and the Bruins waived him, let's say Florida was another team that had a claim. Boston would have to offer him to Florida first before putting him on waivers.
Yeah, and with Spencer Knight there, I don't see. Right now above the Bruins or behind the Bruins on the waiver wire order, you've got Vancouver, which, God knows what they're doing in goal. It would be hilarious if they, did a revenge claim on Bussy after, but I don't know. I just don't see, Vancouver, Florida, Winnipeg, Carolina, Dallas, or New York putting in a waiver claim for one of those two. Kevin says, Bruins fans told me Bussy is NHL ready. So if that's the case, teams should be dying to claim him, right?
Right. Bussy had some serious holes through camp. He did not look good. Those 2 goals against Washington, I don't care what anybody says, they were bad goals. He was out of position. He still gave up some nasty rebounds in that game. I don't know, just not ready. People are like he's young, give him a chance. No, he's not young. He's older than Jeremy Swayman.
It's also, what do we always hear people say? The NHL is not a developmental league.
Right.
And the Boston Bruins specifically are not a developmental team. They have Providence for that. And I think that's one thing that got overlooked pretty clearly in some of the press conferences that both Sweeney and Neely have been consistent on. If you're not ready to help the Boston Bruins win a Stanley Cup right now, that's okay. But your ass is going to Providence until you're ready to help on a consistent basis. And that's okay. And that's why even Patrick Brown isn't on the roster. So those are what we're looking at for, again, projected rosters, barring more movement. It's great to see Swayman on that list, though. But today we've got to go over some of the actual playing prospects.
Yeah, we'll get into more detail on tomorrow night's show when we know what the final roster looks like, what it means, what to expect. When can we see Swayman in his first game? What, even what is happening in Providence, have all the guys cleared, whatever. But today we're going to starting over in Europe. My guy, Jonathan Murenberg, is still out injured. Still no word from the team what the injury is. Missed his 5th and 6th game of the season to start the season this week. And they could really use him. Linköping, the team that he plays for, is hurting. They're giving up a lot of goals where he was, shall we say, a hound dog on defense. So I hope he's back sooner rather than later because I love watching this kid play. Another guy I got to mention is playing in the Continental Hockey League. And I've been down on this guy so hard the last couple of years, is Roman Bishkov, defenseman drafted in, I forget what year now, way back when. I think it was 2019. Has seemed to have found a spot with Spartak Moscow. Playing on a regular basis. He's through 9 games, has an assist. He's never going to put up a lot of points. No, Kevin. Mäntykivi played in Finland. Linkoping is in Sweden. Yeah, so it's good to see that he has found a home. I still don't think he's at NHL caliber, but he is playing well. You know, I'm pretty sure you didn't get a chance to watch Bishkov at all because KHL games are rather expensive to stream, Chris.
I have not to get that one. I've looked into it, but I haven't had a chance to get to it time-wise right now. I'm glad I can get the OHL. I'm glad I can get the AHL. I'm dealing with what I can with time frames right now. So what we need so that I can get the KHL and we can all, have deeper conversations about this, people need to sign up for the Patreon. That way there it helps us grow.
Yeah. There's a selfish little plug.
Yeah.
So
we will be able to get KHL streaming and stuff of that nature and make things easier for us to dive into. So I actually have a giveaway item behind me. I'll pull that out later as well. We'll do that at the end of the month. Give people time to sign up. So, pick the tiers and that they want, that kind of thing.
Okay, so moving on to Friday night in the QMJHL, Loki Johansson. I got to say, I just found out he did an interview after the game today that I haven't watched yet. I just watched the interview, that he's a big Lady Gaga fan. I don't know yet that I'm going to hold that against him, but I'll make my decision on that. Anyway, Moncton Wildcats won 5-1. Johansson didn't get on the scoreboard. What I really, really like, if you remember on I think it was our very first show, I was talking about him in an exhibition game with Moncton and how terrible he looked on the smaller ice surface for the first time. It's like his teammates had to tell him where to go, positioning wise. And it was kind of tough, but night and day difference between then and now. I'm not sure if being at Bruins camp helped him a little. I would like to say that he did. Good signs with him early on. So don't expect a lot of points from him. He's a shutdown defender. Moving on to the USHL on Friday night, the Dubuque Fighting Saints defeated the Chicago Steel 5-2. Your friend Christian Kostaditsky had his first USHL point with an assist. So I bet you're happy about that, Chris.
Yeah, one because I actually did go in and look at some of their prospects' numbers. I haven't had a chance to look at the games, but one thing that did stick out for me with Konstadinsky, low penalty minutes.
Yeah.
Is that what I wanted to ask you about with that? Because I looked at him and they had 4 games played. He hadn't had his point yet, but he only had 2 PIMs?
When he does take a PIM, it's a selfish one.
I don't hate that though. Like if that's the kind of penalty he's taking, that's the kind that can get coached out of the player easier. Like everybody's gonna have their fluky, little stick things and all that stuff. Like everybody's gonna have those nights where it just seems like their stick is slapping somebody around. It happens.
I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think when you take selfish penalties, you're showing a couple things: lack of effort or lack of an ability to keep up.
It's probably for him the lack of ability to keep up.
So he has to work on his game to get rid of that. You can't just get rid of the selfish penalties because you're not at the heart of the issue, which is probably the ability to keep up.
Yeah, Kevin says a lack of discipline too.
Yeah, that points to it.
Yeah.
In that same game, Jonathan Morello didn't put up a point, but I'll tell you, he looks faster than I remember, and his 200-foot game really was on display in this one. And I'll tell you, watching him on the draw, when he won a face-off, it was clean. It was like there wasn't even an opponent in the face-off circle with him. So that was a good sign. I through half a dozen games, I like what I've seen from Morello. Kostadinsky keeps reminding me he's a work in progress and that he has a ways to go. So we'll see if he can get there. Then Friday night, the NCAA season kicked off with Miami, Ohio, and Ferris State playing to a 3-3 draw. Casper Nason, first experience on the smaller ice. I thought he performed well. He's playing second line on the right wing. He's a right shot, but I still think I prefer him on the left wing where he's played a lot. He just looks more comfortable to me on his offside. Then yesterday, Don's Melis's season got underway, and UMass defeated Bentley 5-4. Lochmelis had an assist on the tying goal in the first period, and then the tying goal again. I think it was midway through the third, if I remember correctly. So it was great to see that he was involved at both ends. He's centering the third line for UMass. I liked his game. I liked that he got involved offensively and defensively. I think he's due for a huge breakout season. I think that was also on Saturday. Dubuque beat Waterloo 4-3 in overtime, moved into top spot in the Eastern Conference with a 4-1 0-0 record. Little more disappointing for Morello in this game. He looked invisible through most of it. I don't know if back-to-backs had anything to do with it for him or what was the case. He did have an assist, but wasn't happy with his effort and the fact that he was basically invisible. Even at the dot, I spoke earlier about how clean his faceoffs were. He was being, I guess, to use the term manhandled at the dot is a little bit of an understatement. Kostadinsky, however, I'll tell you, for such a big, and when you watch him, he's so much bigger than everybody else. He's like a giraffe, and everybody else is a snake. Um, he he made some moves, some stick handling moves, where I had to go, "Wow, where did that come from?" Um, there was a sequence, I think it was midway through the second period, where he dangled a couple of Waterloo defenders and just made things happen. So pleasantly surprised to see that in his game. Now, Johansson did play today. Haven't had a chance to see the game. I know there's a couple of NCAA exhibition games going on right now. Chris Pelosi had a goal on a beautiful tip in on that one. So I'm going to have to watch those later because obviously we're here talking to everybody right now.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and look at some of those. And yeah, this was kind of the last weekend where I was able to get a few other things done before all regular seasons are basically going on at that point. So I haven't had a chance to watch nearly as much as you. So, but those updates are awesome to hear. And obviously these are developments. They're looking to improve and lay the building blocks and just keep getting better day after day. And those are cliches that we hear going into camp all the time, but that's really the mentality that these players have to have, in order to just keep going and try to continue their careers and get to the next level. I just noticed Bear Force actually had this question thrown in there. Will Bischel, Meyer, and Kaskasuo end up in Maine? We'll come back to the Providence guys / Maine guys in a minute. But I didn't want them to think that I was ignoring the question since I did catch that while you were going through your updates. So obviously the agenda is yours for today, though, Dom. But I know you love the questions. So
they are prospects and they're part of the discussion. So it's an unknown now until we find out what happens with Bussy and Patera. If they clear and are sent to Providence, then Bischel Meyer will end up in Maine. Kaskasuo remains to be seen what happens with him.
I was going to say, did he even have a contract?
No.
He got on a PTO for Boston, and then he went down to Providence.
Right. He's not. He doesn't have an AHL deal or anything. So you'll probably see a release there because you've then got 3 goalies in Providence, and then what do you do?
Yeah.
I'm sure Evan Gold can look for a trade at the AHL level. But there's just too many guys in the system right now.
Yeah, and depending on what it is that you're looking to bring in for those guys in Hockey League, you're not just going to go out and throw a dart at the dartboard and say we're picking this center. Like you're going to try and target someone who's probably a forward, just because you can never have enough good solid forwards that another team is ready to probably give up on because they know their position down in the American Hockey League, and you're not going to get a future superstar with that trade. So, if you can just give up Kaskasuo by releasing him from all obligations, then that's just the easiest thing to do.
Well, they have no obligation to him. That's just it.
Ideally,
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. I mean, Bischel is on an AHL only contract, so he's likely destined for Providence, for Maine, and so is Meyer, who's also on an AHL deal. So your guys on NHL contracts are DiPietro, Patera, and Bussy.
Yeah.
And you're not sending any one of the 3 to Maine. I can't see it.
No, but we've seen, it would be a little easier for Providence to carry 3 goaltenders than for Boston. Agree or no?
Yeah, I agree.
It's just going to be interesting. Like you said, we're not going to have certain answers until we know who's cleared waivers, if and what that next move is going to be to be cap compliant, and then to follow that up too. I mean, Kevin made a comment back here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, when we were talking about the NHL roster, they might have Tyler Johnson wait for a little while till they figure out the roster, figure out what they have for cap space, and then sign him to a deal like they did last year with Danton Heinen. No obligation for him to wait. If somebody else looks at him and say, we think you had a great camp, here's a contract offer, he can take it. But, I mean, Tyler Johnson, definitely helped push some of the young guys in camp. I don't think that can go overlooked, whether he signs or not.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jackson Edward, he could be going to Maine, but I thought in the game against Washington, he played fairly well in the exhibition game. It was only his second game after missing a lot of camp with an injury. But I don't think he's going to beat out Callahan and Brunet or Osterley on the left side. He might, and because he's predominantly played the right side for the last season and a bit, Regula being injured might have an opening for him there. Miller's still up in Boston, so there could be an opening there. And Ryan Mass, to me, did not look very good at camp with Boston. So there's another opening.
But then you also got Sweezy.
Right. Okay, so you've got Bavaro, Sweezy,
Mitchell,
and Edward as your 3 right side defensemen.
And maybe Mitchell if he goes on.
Right.
So, it's I mean, Jackson Edwards is a player that the same way we talk about it with Boston guys going down to Providence guys going down to Maine, or up north to Maine, I guess would be the better way to put it. I would rather see Jackson Edward get minutes.
Yep. That's what you want from these guys.
In the ECHL than sit on the bench and ride a bus for practice purposes in the American Hockey League. So, and then Kevin added in Johnson would be big on the power play if they do end up signing him. Sorry, Dom, that's my last Bruins comment just because it was brought up.
Trevor Kuntar had a hat trick last night. I know you're a big fan of Trevor Kuntar, Chris.
I love this game. I can't wait to see where it continues to grow and get to. Him flying around that ice in Providence, I'm looking forward to seeing that this year. So I've got some connections in the American Hockey League in the local New England area. So if I can get to certain rinks, I can get in to see some of these guys more frequently. Unfortunately, Providence is one of the ones I'm waiting to hear back from still, but hopefully we get.
And Trevor Kuntar, Brett Harrison also had a good camp with Boston. I thought he looked good in a couple of the exhibition games.
Still has to be on embracing the physicality of the game.
No, but it's coming. It's coming, and
it's
as long as you keep seeing improvements, that's all you can ask in these guys. Merkulov, I don't know what to say other than I'm disappointed. I know that a lot of people complained that he wasn't given a fair shot in Boston when he was called up last year for 4 games.
I hate that take.
I proved that take wrong.
I know.
based on the minutes he played and with who. Now, the thing is, he's gonna go down there, and if he's on a line with Letary and Lysell, again, he's gonna light it up, and people are gonna say, look at him. He's like over a point per game in the AHL. Play him with Marchand, or play him with Pasternak, or play him with scores. It's not what the game is all about. You've got to see effort. You got to see the effort to drive. You've got to see the effort to compete, and it's just been lacking with Merkulov. Last week we were talking about Fabian Lysell and who he's playing with, and I was glad with who he was playing with because I wanted to see the drive from him. I wanted him to drive the line, and I wanted to see the compete level from him. And you don't get that playing with David Pasternak or Brad Marchand because they're the drivers, they're the competers.
Right. It's like what we were saying when we were dissecting who got sent down to camp in that first round. Like the players who have had NHL minutes before, even if not very many, they are the ones who are going to push the NHL players to be ready for an NHL season. Someone like Fabian Lysell or Georgi Merkulov, who haven't been there before, aren't going to push them as hard. It is literally the concept of iron sharpening iron. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah, so, Vinny Letary at this point is who he is. A veteran player who will help these younger players along. Duran, everybody that likes Riley Duran at the game he plays. I thought he had a terrible exhibition game against Washington, however. John Farinacci, you could see why I was high on him a year ago at certain times through camp. I think he's going to have a tremendous season in the American Hockey League. Same with Jackson Nelson, who had a great camp. Mark McLaughlin. Sorry, Kevin, I know you're not going to like to hear this. But at this point, he is what? Basically. What is he?
He's an American Hockey League player. Like, I just, Kevin noted this comment before too. You have to see that he's worked on the things asked of him to succeed at the NHL level, regardless of his stat sheet, and that's what it boils down to. And that also fits for Mark McLaughlin. Now, you've talked about it before. You can get by in the NHL in your first 5, maybe even 10 games on adrenaline. Mm-hmm. After that, there's going to be a downfall. And Mark McLaughlin is the epitome of what you're talking about there. He looked great for a handful of games. And then I don't even remember what the circumstances were, but they said, we want you to go to Providence and work on X, Y, and Z. And he's just kind of plateaued.
Yeah. And it happens. That's fine. Not everybody is going to make it. When we first started doing this show and we were looking at a potential Providence, I think it was when we were doing my player rankings. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. But when we're looking at the Providence guys, I said there might be 3, maybe 4 that will play at the NHL level out of that entire group. Yeah. It is what it is. They're not all going to make it.
And when you say 3 or 4 playing at that level, excuse me, you mean playing multiple years, significant time. You're not talking like Patrick Brown, for instance. He's a tweener guy. Like, I know everybody likes to bitch about Patrick Brown being on this team, but I mean, I don't want to say he's the perfect 13th forward, otherwise he'd be on the NHL roster.
Mm-hmm.
But really good, let's say 15th or 16th forward. You get a couple injuries in the NHL level. He has a low ceiling, but you know he has a consistent floor. So when you need someone consistent on a short-term basis due to an injury, you know you can, and you're going to need to make someone that you might lose to waivers. That's what a Patrick Brown is for.
Yeah. There's 22 players, I think 22 players in Providence on NHL contracts. And to me, I'll give you the four that to me are surefire NHL players. Trevor Kuntar, Riley Duran, John Farinacci, and yes, Fabian Lysell.
Yeah, I think they're just going to be patient with Lysell, which is more than what fans want. Kevin says that he doesn't need that kind of negativity in his life. Leave McLaughlin alone. And,
Sorry, Kevin. I apologize before I said anything. Hello, Court.
Welcome.
So, people, when I say that, people automatically say to me, what about Jackson Edward? Well, yeah, I followed Jackson Edward for a couple of years. Okay. But he did well at the OHL level. I have yet to see him in a pro game, a meaningful pro game, whether AHL or NHL. So I can't base anything. I have nothing to base it on to say, yeah, he's a surefire NHLer. To me, the four I mentioned will play in the NHL, and that's it. Out of that, Brett Harrison is on the bubble. Georgi Merkulov is on the bubble if he wants to stick around in North America and give it another shot. But that's it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there are other guys who could do it. It's not to knock on them. It's just that, when you're talking about the guys that, as of right now, based on what you've seen and what you feel comfortable projecting out, those are the guys. And you know what? That's still not that bad. I feel like there's going to be other guys who get their cup of coffee, and some of them might not let it go.
This is a good question. This is a really. I'm trying to pull it up, but you are at the same time. I wanted to tweet this out earlier, and I thought, no, I'm not going to. But if I were the Bruins, Jan Yannick, a player I've seen extensively, would interest me. Ryan Suzuki, not Ryan. What's the brother's name? Suzuki.
Real Nick?
Or no, Ryan Suzuki.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it's Ryan Suzuki. I was right the first time. I've never been a fan of his, even prior to his draft year. Not a fan. Lavoie, I would have some interest in. But Jan Yannick is the guy that I would have a lot of interest in.
Let's see. Kevin says, if Merck had more size in the heart of Poitras, kid would be in the NHL right now. Scratch size, his size is fine. I think he compared him to Matt Poitras. And then, yes, Big Bad Bruin Joe said, yes, Ryan. This is why some of the players that you saw, especially Bussy and Patera, were put on waivers today. Even if Swayman hadn't signed, my guess is one of them or both of them would have still been put on waivers, because while those, let's say they're interested in one of those three guys. Dom, who are you most interested in that list?
Of the three that were named?
Yeah, specifically those three.
Yannick.
Okay. You put in a claim for Yannick. What's your next move? You now have 25 players. You've got to cut two more, and you've got to get two guys through. You either got to put two guys on waivers that you think are going to get through, on a day after everybody else has. Like, you're not just going to put a claim on Unique just to waive him again. Like, I just don't see a move of that nature being something that Don Sweeney looks for, if that makes sense.
No. Don Sweeney usually puts in a waiver claim when he has to fill in a hole for some reason. I think his last waiver claim was Jared Tenorti.
Yep.
When they had injuries on defense and they needed an NHL body and they put in a claim. They did it with Patera because at the time they didn't know what was happening with Swayman and they needed a body. So they put in a claim. The thing with Unique is he can play all three forward positions. I'm trying to debate who, in my head, who would I rather have, Lysell or Unique?
Well, Lysell's already going to be in Providence.
No, but just so I can give a picture of where the player fits in.
I see what you're saying.
At this point, I would have to say Jan Unique is closer to the NHL. So I don't know. To answer your question, I'm not sure what following moves would have to be made. But you asked me which one of the three would I be interested in.
Of course.
And that's my answer.
I know. There's a difference between interest and acting. I know. So, Kevin, dude's name is Unique. That's unique.
Jan Unique.
And that's not even how it's spelled, Kevin. Come on. David agrees. So,
David always agrees.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with you, Dom. You make that really hard to do sometimes.
No, he's agreeing that the name is unique.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying in general. Kevin, on the other,
my good friend Reed Duthie, who was the play-by-play voice of the Hamilton Bulldogs when Unique played there, used to get his tongue tied calling his name all the time. And there was a stretch where he went on, I think, was a 42-game point streak where Reed was calling his name out a lot, and he had some tongue twisters.
Well, I don't envy broadcasters sometimes with some of the names that probably get thrown at them. And I know a lot of them will check in and say, how does this player want their name pronounced and that sort of thing. But it just, I don't envy the job that some of them have to go through. So,
no.
Especially with some of the names that have come through. So, Dom, what else you got on the agenda for tonight?
That's it. We can go back to complaining about Jeremy Swayman again.
I mean, we got nothing to talk about there. There's a contract in place.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm lost.
I will say I was very entertained by the massive freak out by some fans when Patera was claimed, just because what does this mean and all that sort of stuff. It is so much more entertaining to watch some people explode their own brain. Go from he's this is a ridiculously low offer when this rumor comes out to he's insane for asking for that. They need to trade him. Let's start talking about trade scenarios. And then now he's signed and everyone goes, yay, see, there was never anything to worry about. Good for both sides. Why wasn't that before?
That's the difference between you and me, is I never read notifications. And you, in your sick mind, have got me started doing it. And I wish Matrix was still here because they would confirm this actually happened today. So Matrix asked me a question about Patera. Or I had tweeted out, I said, if the Bruins waive Bussy, I wouldn't be surprised if the Canucks put in a revenge claim against Bussy. And Matrix asked me a question. I said, no. The Bruins claimed Patera from the Canucks. And somebody else responded, no, the Bruins got Patera from the Vegas Knights. I don't know what Dom's talking about. See, I would never know that if you didn't try to get me to go read notifications. Never.
Some of them make it well worth it. So,
I don't know. I tweeted out the cap situation today, and I had like 4,000 people telling me how the cap works.
oh, that's great.
Okay. So you see why I ignore notifications?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand why you do it. I've learned to find the absolute humor in it, because when someone spews off, like someone was talking about the Swayman contract, and I was like, I made a comment on, the contract, and they were like, well, who cares how it's paid out? $64 million is $64 million. And I'm like, no, it absolutely is. Signing bonus and lockout protection is a huge thing. And if you look, they gave Pasternak $3 million in lockout protection. So it clearly means something to the player to want to fight for it, and for the team to not want to give it out. Whether you agree or not, that's how those two sides look at it. And then when the deal came out and we had the structure of it from Puckpedia, I sent it over to that person. I went, if it didn't matter, the deal wouldn't look like this. It wouldn't be structured this way. It would just be, 8.25 in salary every year, or it would be 8.25 in signing bonuses every year, because why would they care?
Yeah. It's like, I will say this. Like, this deal had to have gotten done yesterday at some time. For the Bruins to get that video of Swayman driving into the arena and getting it all set up early this morning, I find that impossible.
Stock footage of him driving into the arena from some other time, but
I doubt it, just because of his reaction, winking at the cameras and stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I got to say, Swayman in the press conference handled that very, very well. It was nice to see the smile on his face again.
Yep.
Because there were interviews where we saw him where he wasn't smiling, podcasts he was on. So that was good to see. It remains to be seen now, because we've seen it over the last year. Excuse me. Whether he can let bygones be bygones, and it being about the future now.
Listen, at this point, since he's got the contract, if he wants to keep looking at that arbitration list that he mentioned in Face Off, if that's going to fuel him in the playoffs, fucking keep looking at it. If that's what we're going to get from that kind of fueled player, like, he needs to be able to compartmentalize when to look at it and when to use that fuel and when to not worry about things. That's what I think we need to see come to fruition. But, I mean, if that's the fire that's going to light him to, what was it in the playoffs, and almost a .940 save percentage, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And yeah, as Kevin says, he better be smiling. He just got a contract that's worth smiling about. Now he needs to show he's worth it if he wants to keep that smile.
Yeah, here's what I worry about. And it's not really worrying. This is what is going to be sad to see happening. There will be a portion of the fan base that will now treat him like they treated Tuukka Rask.
1,000%.
You know, especially if he doesn't win a cup in the next couple of years.
Right, like Kevin said. And that's the problem with it. It's super unfortunate that that's how it's going to be, but you know, at the end of the day, you can say all you want about him as a fan. He's the one who's getting paid $8.25 million. Right? So I'm pretty sure he doesn't give a flying fuck if you want to, go and banter at him and hold up a sign that says 64 million or leave. This is a good question from David. Do you think this is bad blood or was it semantics? The Bruins left $8 million on the table since June. Bruins and Swayman controlled the conversation all summer and early into the season. Good for sales. Well, I mean,
I doubt it.
Yeah.
At least I would hope not. I don't think Cam Neely is that smart to do that, to be honest with you. I really don't.
And just the way he kind of, I don't want to say checked himself before saying it, but just like the body language. I wish like hell we had video footage now. And I don't know, maybe it's out there and I haven't seen it. I don't know. If anyone has video footage of Sweeney's reaction when he said that on Monday, that will tell us all we need to know, I think. Although Sweeney is a very good monotone, non-emotion showing person, so he may have just sat there and just kind of chuckled to himself going, what are you doing to me? But who really knows? I agree with Leonardo that contract overall is going to age very well.
Mm-hmm.
He does have that pressure to win the cup. Kevin points out goaltenders are the scapegoats. If Pasta never wins a cup, you'll never see people hate on him anywhere close to what they did to Rask. Let's see. Don says, I was hoping he'd end up in Montreal, win a bunch of cups just to shove it against the haters. That's not going to be fun for us, Don. Come on. Who wants to see Montreal go to the cup here? Come on. And then let's see. David has a good question. Do the Bruins have the best D in the NHL?
I'd be hard pressed to find a top 7 because I'm going to include Waterspoon in there. I'd be hard pressed to find a top 7 that matches with them.
Yeah, I mean, top 6, like Vegas has a decent top 6 overall. Their top 4 is incredible. I mean, not really are you going to find the kind of depth that they have. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
1 through 7 is the key part there.
I know we went through this in last week's show, if I'm correct, Chris. We compared the positions in the division.
Yeah.
Like the Bruins goaltending against everybody else in the division, the defense and the forwards.
Yeah, someone had asked a question about that. So
yeah.
we ran through it real quick. It might have been a couple episodes ago, but
yeah, league wide, I'm having a hard time coming up with a 1 through 7 that I would take over the Bruins.
Now,
and when somebody says the best to me, I look at it like this. I say, okay, 1 through 7, here are the Bruins. Is there another team's 7 defensemen I would take over top of the Bruins? And the answer is no.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And then the other question, and this will just kind of piggyback off of David's answer, because now we know you have Swayman, we know you have Korpisalo as the number 2. As a 1-2 tandem, where would you say the Bruins goaltending ranks when obviously for something like this you have to assume they're playing at their best. We can keep it to just within the division, but if you want to include the entire NHL, I'm okay with that.
In the division, I have to put Florida and Boston 1-2 in the division. Toss up as to which one's 1 and which one's 2.
Yeah, I think we have to see a little bit more from Spencer Knight right now at the NHL level.
Yeah,
But,
so you can flip a coin there. The Bruins, in my opinion, have the best defense in the division.
I would think so.
So already you're ahead of the game. Forwards, however,
That's a tough question.
see you 1 through 12. I have to go with Florida, then Toronto,
Boston, what, third?
Boston would be third.
And that I think that's where we probably very similar to the order that we would have had last year too. I just think that this year's Boston being at third is a higher third, closer to second than last year's. But
In terms of forwards, yes. With defense, oh man, I would have put Boston.
they blow this last year's defense out of the water.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As far as, I mean, we've had the conversation. Let's see. Kevin says, but Boston fans told me Carlo is soft and Lindholm is soft and McAvoy is overrated. They mentioned that. So
Yeah, but Kevin, they are soft. Have you ever hugged them?
there you go. Kevin says, I feel like Tampa and Boston are close for top 12.
Kucherov, Point.
Their top 3, Point and Gensel, far,
Would beat the Bruins.
yeah, it outmatches. Even if you went Marchand, Lindholm, Pasternak, I'm still taking the Tampa top 3 by a mile.
Yeah.
That
Easy.
said, once you get to lines 3 and 4 on Tampa Bay, you go, what? And are we sure about that? So I think Tampa will be better than most people are giving them credit for. But I think a lot of that is going to be because Andrei Vasilevsky is coming out with his hair on fire this year, and he's got a lot of it to burn up. He's pissed because he had the worst year of his career last year because of the back injury. But coming into this year, he is healthy. A healthy, pissed off Andrei Vasilevsky is worse. It's probably the worst thing for the Atlantic Division.
I'll get your follow-up question, Kevin. We'll get to it. Any remote chance Swayman starts game 1? I think the Bruins put an end to that today. I think they said it was going to be Korpisalo.
Yeah.
And yes, Kevin, they are very, very good at plugging holes, but those holes have to be plugged still. As the rosters are today, I wouldn't say that they're close.
Right. And they're good at plugging the holes, but that doesn't last forever. Eventually, you miss more than you hit. Like,
Yeah, but that's not the point he's making. I agree with him. Tampa is excellent at plugging the holes. And I'm not going to take that away from him. But today, the rosters today, I don't think Boston and Tampa are that close. at least when it comes to the forwards.
No. I stand by, and you've heard me say this a few times, and obviously I was a little worried when we were entering this weekend and Swayman still didn't have a deal, but now that that's done, I'm still feeling like Boston can win the division. I really am. They were damn near close to it last year when I said the same thing, and you saw some of the comments that I got when I would say that. There's no way they would be able to do it. They're not that good. All those types of things, and they were 1 point away from doing it on the last day of the year. So I'm sticking to it. I think they can pull it off this year, and I don't have a lot of faith in the Toronto defense.
I think they can win the division too. I just want them to get to the playoffs healthy and rested.
Yeah, let's see. Johnny says need to hope some folks step up and score some goals. Goal scoring could become an issue at some point, absolutely, but we've seen them get through that issue before. And obviously with Swayman and the defense that you have, I think you're looking at some 3-1 games, 3-2 games. You're not going to have 7-2 games, or you're not the offense that was 2003. You're just not.
Yeah, one thing we know is this team knows how to lock it down under Joe Sacco. They know how to lock it down. Now they've got better personnel to lock it down.
Yeah, Kevin says Brazeau will have 15 goals this season, and you know what, Kevin? I've been impressed by what I've seen from him. I would at this point have him on the team. I'm not sure where. Do you see Justin Brazeau as a third line player or a fourth line player right
now? If Geeky's getting second line, then Brazeau's getting third line.
Do you have a problem with Geeky on that second line? I know a lot of fans aren't thrilled by it.
No.
I don't have a huge problem. I want to see what it looks like before I sit here and complain that it's crap.
Yeah, exactly.
And Geeky and Coyle have played well together before. And then obviously Coyle and Marchand have played fantastic before. I think you're going to see that line utilized in more of a shutdown role.
Yeah, you can't base anything on what you've seen in exhibition. You just can't.
I think, while we were talking about Tampa, what line do you feel better can shut down Point, Kucherov, and Gensel? Geeky, Coyle, and Marchand, or Lindholm, Pasta, and Zacha?
Oh, the Coyle line.
I'm going with the Coyle line against that top three, 100%.
Yeah.
They'll produce some offense for sure, but I'm looking at that to shut down the number one line for the opposition, and essentially, if that line can go net neutral, I'm confident in the abilities of my other three lines to put up some points. Obviously, you're not going to keep Marchand off the score sheet all season. You're not going to keep Coyle off the score sheet all season. Geeky, you can keep off the score sheet for quite a while. But if that's not their role, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Yes, Kevin or David, any team needs to stay healthy. That's a key factor for anybody. Big Bad Bruin Joe says they will need a better power play and shoot a lot more on net and drive the net. That's something that Brazeau has shown he can bring them. A drive to the net, a controlled drive to the net with the inability to find rebounds and score those greasy goals.
I think we're going to see a different power play this year. I really do.
I think so. And then Kevin says Geeky looked fantastic this preseason. He's going to be great with Coyle and Marchand. He's going to produce a lot of high-danger shots. He will be a better option than Smith was. Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would agree with that. It's not a line I would underestimate the offense on, but if you're trying to shut down the opposition's number one line, that's the one I want out there. That's all. So anyway, let's see if there's anything else Dom, what else you got for us? Anything?
That's pretty much it. Sorry, folks, we took our prospect show and went in a different direction, but had to do it with the signing today.
With the signing, I mean, we covered the prospects. It's a little tough when Providence isn't playing regular season games just yet, and like you said,
And half the prospects aren't playing yet.
yeah, the NCAA just kicked off. The OHL is working on kicking off. Like we're getting there. So, and besides, this is what the people wanted to talk about today. We will be back on the air again tomorrow, before the regular season opener.
And we'll have a final roster.
And we'll have the final roster, so we'll be able to dissect that and see what kind of blender we'll be working with from Jim Montgomery this season. What's your over under on too many men penalties this year?
3.5.
You taking the over or the under?
I'm taking the under.
I would agree with that. I think they'll be a lot better at it this year, and they'll put an emphasis on it. David wants to know, can we discuss the Bruins parade route? That is beyond my.
I can tell you, it's going to go down Ontario Street, turn south on Romeo Street, then turn back east on Oxford Street, and just drive right by my window here so I can watch the whole thing.
Actually, if that were the case, Dom, I'd say, can we just parade it through Maple Leaf Square too?
No, I don't want to start World War III.
All right, Toronto and Boston, round one again this year.
I saw a beautiful GIF today. I think it was Court that put it out. Court, if you're still here, tell us. But it was captioned Toronto Maple Leaf fans today, and it was the scene of Bugs Bunny cutting Florida off the map when Boston's in Florida and they're floating away. I'm pretty sure it was Court that put that out there.
I think you're right. I think that was that was a good one. I did see that. I gotta say though, Toronto better watch out because I don't see them being able to get past Boston again.
No.
Kevin says, I have the Bruins as a playoff team, but not yet a serious contender. That could change. Kevin, let me ask you this. Based off of what we've seen in the last two seasons, my opinion, and I'm sure you probably share this is a better built team with Zadorov added to the back end and Elias Lindholm up front. Nothing's going to beat the team that we had 2 years ago that lost in the first round to Florida. Nothing's going to beat that. However, based on last year and what they've taken away from the last two seasons, I feel like this is a better team, better roster. Now, they have to go through the seasons, the up and downs. There you go. Okay, so you do agree that it's better built. They were in line to win the division until the very last game, which admittedly, let's face it, they took their foot off the gas a little bit towards the end there. And I think that overall the team did, and that was made known too, especially when we find out that Fabian Lysell would have been called up if he wasn't hurt. So the mindset was a little different. They weren't worried about winning the division. I think this year they're going to be much more prepared to go into the playoffs. And when that happens, they're going to be much more dangerous. They are by far a better candidate to get 2-3 rounds deep this year than they were last year. And yeah, Leonardo says Leafs fans are jealous. We are signing a majority of our core pieces for under $10 million. Yeah, Kevin,
I think the first month of the season with such a tough schedule is going to be, it's either going to have fans jumping on the bandwagon or fans jumping off the bandwagon.
Yeah, I will say this. I would not be surprised on Tuesday if you see Boston upset Florida at home. And here's why. The
because
entire
they're raising the banner, and most teams lose when they raise a banner.
well, there's that. And Boston just got an amazing boost of confidence to their entire game. Swayman signed just now. So that's going to make the entire team feel a lot better going into the season. And once he makes his debut, that'll be another game that they're going to have a lot of giddy up for. So let's see. Johnny says, think we are one top 6 short, then need luck and health. Well, the good thing, Johnny, is there's time between now and the trade deadline. As long as they can manage to stay healthy and stay out of LTIR, they'll be able to add a piece at the deadline. Now, the significance of that piece might change based off of roster moves, but people need to learn, and some of them have. People need to learn that Evan Gold is the master of the paper transaction. So if you see Matthew Poitras go down, Mason Lorite go down, and John Beecher go down, and you go, what the hell are they doing? There's a reason for it. It's to build cap space. Don says if we have an injured star and we winning without them in the playoffs, please let them sit an extra game. Kevin said, would Boston beating Florida be an upset, though, or do you mean just in regards to the fact that it's banner night? Just the fact that it's banner night, really. Michael wants to know, which divisional series will they win? Like during the regular season or in the playoffs? Like, who will they be over the course of the regular season? And then Kevin says they have 5 top 6 forwards. No team in the NHL has 6 top 6 forwards.
You could argue Toronto does.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Nylander, Tavares, Domi, Marner, Matthews, and Nyes. I mean, even Pacioretty could probably go in instead of Max Domi if he's healthy. I don't know. There's some depth in Toronto on the front end.
You could argue, you could say Vegas does too.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm sure there's a
Heck,
couple.
you could even say Vancouver does.
I would say Nashville.
Nashville.
I guess you could say there's some question marks about Tommy Novak, but he's been fairly consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist, Marchessault, Novak, and Stamkos. I like that top 6. I do. Yeah, Kevin, I think we're shooting down the point. So, okay, I'll call it. Swayman scores this year. I don't know about that.
Back to Michael's question, he's saying the regular season.
So, who do they take more games from within the division in the regular season?
Which regular season series do they win? They beat Buffalo.
Yep.
Ottawa's a question mark for me.
I think they take Ottawa.
I think they're a question mark for me simply because of Allmark. I'm going to say Detroit does.
Yeah, I think they take Detroit too.
No, I think Detroit takes the series.
Oh, you think Detroit
Yeah.
takes? Interesting.
I think Boston takes it over Tampa. I think they take it over Toronto. And I think Florida takes it over Boston.
I would say
Who am I missing?
Montreal.
Oh, and Boston takes it over Montreal.
I would say the ones to worry about that I think they would lose it to would be Tampa and Toronto. Florida is a high likelihood, but I think most of the team is going to come out and ready for those games. They'll be close series though, but I wouldn't be surprised if Boston takes it, and they'll probably lose one, like you said, to Detroit, Buffalo, one of those teams, probably Detroit. I see where you're coming from on that. Kevin says when people say top 6, though, they're talking about 70-point plus guys. Name the team with 6 70-plus point guys in their top 6.
Well, who's talking about 70 plus points though?
Right.
Because if you have 6 70-point scorers, then aren't they all top line?
Right. That's
So you have to draw the line in the sand someplace.
right. And if someone has 70, or let's say someone has 67 points, but they play in 64 games, because they have an injury, like, are you still going to count that player out? I wouldn't. Okay, he says actually I'll say 60 points. It's still anyway. We'll move on from Kevin. He likes to stir that pot. Hey guys, thoughts on camp and where he could slot?
I thought he had a very good camp. I don't know where he's going to slot. That we'll know more tomorrow when we get the roster announcement.
Yeah, once we get the final roster, we'll be able to kind of see where people slot in. I mean, we Dom and I can look at the roster and sort most of it out at that point, just because you're not going to see a guy like anyway. Moving on. Johnny says Bruins played Florida well in regular season last year. Boys get up for those games. I think that plays a huge part of it. Let's see. Got to win divisional series to make playoffs. You just got to put points up. That's
Well, no, there's some truth to that, but you don't got to win them all.
right. Last year they only lost 1. Yeah, that's fine. I'm looking at them for this year, though. Let's see. Kevin then says, I'm just saying that's the idea a lot of people have in their minds when they think top 6 guy. Okay, but that doesn't mean their minds are wrong. So.
Or right.
All right. So, anyways, do we have any other? I'm just trying to sift through. If we have any other questions on some of the prospects, anybody that we might have missed on the prospect side of things, we're approaching 8 o'clock here. I will pull back out. I have, like I said, we'll give folks till the end of the month to sign up for the Patreon to qualify for our first giveaway. But we have the nice old jersey here. It is a Marchand, and never before worn, just so people know. Still got tags on it and everything. But this will be one of the items, the first item that we will be giving away to our Patreon subscribers. So head on over to patreon.com/whatsbrewin to see which tiers you can sign up for to qualify for this bad boy. And hopefully we see a lot of you on the Patreon. Johnny wants to know thoughts on the revamped fourth line. Great fourth line will take a lot of pressure off, pucks deep, and grind it out.
Yeah, it's remains to be seen who's going to be on that fourth line. Like I said, we'll know more tomorrow when the roster is released. It could very well be Kepke, Kostelik, and Tufty
Feature.
on that.
Or Tufty.
And
Yep.
Tufty tomorrow night. They might just have to send Beecher down for the day to get some cap money. So tomorrow night's show, 6:30, right here again. We'll talk about it. We'll have all the answers that we need where we can give an informed opinion. So tune back in tomorrow night. If you're on YouTube, please give a like. Even though you guys don't like me, love Chris, give us a like.
They're more likely to like you, but that's fine.
And
Biggest thing is subscribe, because every time we go live, you'll get notified.
yeah, that too.
So let's see. We'll take this last question here from Michael. You think Bruins confront Bennett in season opener because of last playoff?
You got to remember the guys that you expect to weren't here last year. So I don't know who would be the one, but I don't expect the guys that weren't here last year who didn't have a stake in it to feel like they have to get some retribution in.
Yeah, the guys that would do that kind of thing, you're talking Zadorov. I just don't see it being in the first game at least. Wait till they do something to piss you off, and then you can really look at Zadorov and be like, all right, this is what needs to be done. He needs to be, hands need to be thrown down with him, and we really need to have it out with this team. But it's also the control to not let things get too far out of control, because that's part of what they're looking for too. If you can get under their skin by not overreacting to the things that they've done before, then that's going to bother them, because that's their game. They want to knock you off of your game mentally. So with that, any final thoughts on any of the prospects? I'm looking forward to having a lot more of those regular seasons kick off, but the updates so far have been not fantastic on the score sheet, but good overall, and we'll see how these guys continue to progress through the season.
No, I think we covered it all for tonight. Like I said, we'll be back at it tomorrow with updated Bruins information. The news should be out by 5 p.m. We'll know, and we'll be live at 6:30.
Yep. So we'll have time to look through things, and I promise, Dom and I don't discuss our opinions until we get on the show. So we look at it, we form our own thoughts and opinions, and then we come on here and unfortunately sometimes agree too much. So I'll try to find things to disagree with you on.
Good, because controversy sells.
So with that, the last thing I've got